Crossovers. What is the definition of a crossover? Well, Google says a point or place of crossing from one side to the other, and 2, the process of achieving success in a different field or style, especially popular in music. For example, a jazz classical crossover album. Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Killer J. Y'all can call me KJ. Welcome back to another video. So what are some of the biggest crossovers in movie and media history? Arguably, we can say movies like Avengers or classics like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but sticking to single character crossovers, which one's the best? We can make an argument for Batman vs Superman, Godzilla vs King Kong, Timmy Turner vs Jimmy Neutron. See, crossovers have been a part of movies and entertainment for decades, and the horror genre is no stranger to crossovers, dating back to 1940s with Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, or as modern as the Pooh Bears, which is basically like a horror like version of fairy tales and Winnie the Pooh and all that, and they're gonna be releasing different movies and then crossing them over together. But what if I told you that back in 2003 we had one of the biggest crossovers not only in horror history but in movie history itself, when 2 of the most iconic slasher killers got out of fictional and developmental hell in order to duke it out in a bloody, confusing masterpiece of a mess. I'm talking about none other than 2003's Freddy Vs Jason. Finally, after years of what ifs, we got that horror movie crossover that everybody wanted. What if Camp Blood's own 6'5", 300-pound hockey mask killer came face to face with the man of your dreams, Springwood Slasher's own Freddy Krueger? And today we're going to talk about that. But before we do that, let me talk about this video sponsor, and that video sponsor is me. Guys, follow me on social media. Follow me on Instagram. Is the only way I can grow and bring you guys more content. All the links are going to be in the description. We're doing like Spooktober over on Twitch, and we're dressing up in different costumes and doing spooky stuff and trivia and movies and stories, etc, etc, etc.
Holy shit, bro. Thank you for the sub. Limo. Oh shit, Limo Chupo!
So back in 2003, we finally got this movie out after so many scripts, so many rewrites, so many changes of director, writer, and producer. We finally got a story that's solid enough to get approved, to get released, and we got this movie. If you want to know more about the inner workings of Freddy vs Jason, all the script rewrites and all the details, make sure you go and watch Joe Blow's Horror and Matt McMuscle's video about it. They're in the description. I'm going to link them down there. They get more in detail with all the behind the scenes and all that stuff. They do a way better job of explaining than I do. So I remember I was like 8 or 9 when this movie came out, and I do remember watching it in theaters with my family. I don't know if it was my father or my sister and my mom. They're both horror fans, and my dad was an old school horror fan. So I don't know who took me to the theaters to see it, but I do have a vivid memory of watching it in a big screen. And at the time, I was blown away because Jason was like my John Cena. And, you know, seeing him beat the crap out of Freddy and win this fight just like made me so happy. And yes, I will die on that hill. Jason does get the majority decision in this like fight. And if you don't agree, fight me. I'll send you my pin. I'll send you my location. We'll go into the front lawn and we'll duke it out. So after 2 decades, I decided to sit down, watch it with a different mentality, and write a whole script about all the things that I love and hate about this film. So let's get into it. The movie's continuity takes place after Jason goes to hell and Freddy's dead, when both titular characters got basically defeated and got sent to hell in their own like unique way. We watched both Jason Goes to Hell and Freddy's Dead live on stream.
Oh shit, here it goes. God damn!
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little soul too.
And God, you can see how much they milked this series by the end of them, because that last Freddy's Dead film and that Jason Goes to Hell film, even though it holds a spot near and dear in my nostalgic heart, they were bad movies. I'm sorry, they were bad movies. One day, eventually, I'll get into that as a second part to this video, but they were really bad movies. I couldn't even get through Freddy's Dead without just complaining about it. And I'm not going to get into the whole how Jason X came out before Freddy vs. Jason. For continuity's sake and for this video, Jason Goes to Hell, Freddy's Dead, Freddy vs. Jason, and then whatever the hell happened to Freddy and Jason afterwards in space and all that crap.
So whatever, the movie starts off with a backstory for Freddy narrated by himself. It's basically a flashback when Freddy got burned by the parents after he was found innocent in the trials. We also get a compilation of different scenes from different Nightmare on Elm Street films, and this is just to essentially explain to the average viewer who Freddy Krueger is.
Because technically Freddy is the villain of this film. So long story short, if people don't believe or remember Freddy, he has to stay in in hell. So he basically goes through hell trying to find someone to actually help him, and he finds our big boy Jason. We'll talk about Freddy's whole plan in a bit because they do some exposure dump like crazy in this film.
But first, since this is essentially a Friday the 13th film, you have to have some of these cliches in there. So 3 minutes into the film, we get this movie's rendition of Camp Crystal Lake, where this girl is about to go skinny dipping, but she gets scared and starts getting chased by Jason.
And I have to admit, I love the design of Jason in this film. I'm a big fan of Hoodie Jason. I'm kind of bummed out that Kane Hodder didn't play him, and that would have given some of the fight scenes more personality, but I love Lazy Eye Hoodie Jason. I remember dressing as him for so many years in Halloween because it was just easy. You needed a fucked up like shirt, a fucked up hoodie, some gloves, and a Jason mask, and boom, you're good.
So yeah, the girl's getting chased through the woods, yada yada yada, and then minga, we get our first kill. But something is off. Is this all a dream by Freddy inside of Jason's dead zombie mind? Yeah, let's go with that.
So this movie makes a lot of sense, but it doesn't at the same time. Because the movie takes a lot of liberties with some of the continuity, but it's some of the things that they have to change in order for the actual story to work in itself. So let me give you a more in-detail breakdown of Freddy's plan. Freddy needs people to remember him, so he basically wakes up Jason from hell and sends him on a hitchhiking trip all the way to Ohio. He basically gets an unstoppable killing machine to run errands for him and kill people in order to make him remember Freddy. So yeah, that's basically the plot of the film. It's just that. We just have 1 hour and 30 minutes of that and fighting.
So Jason finally arrives in the infamous Elm Street in Springwood, Ohio after hitchhiking for about 8 hours.
We'll get into details about the location of each place later in the video.
And now we get to meet half of our main cast. We have Lori Campbell, our lead / final girl, Kia Watterson, our second lead and the diversity pick for this film. Gibbs, yeah, Gibbs is just... she's like the pretty girl, you know, party girl. Trey, he's a dick. And Blake, which is Trey's friend.
Yeah, so this is not the full main cast. We get more characters introduced later on.
So Lori and her father are living in the same house as Nancy from the first Nightmare on Elm Street films and the rest of the saga. Lori's having a small get together with all her friends, Kia, Gibbs, her boyfriend Trey, and this new guy called Blake. And they're up to the normal things that teenagers do back in the day, you know, some underage drinking, some drugs, some premarital sex.
Hey, you want a beer?
Or do you want to smoke some pot?
Or we can have premarital sex.
Yeah, Trey's a dick. If you need more proof here.
Whoa, babe. Tell you about kissing me after you smoked, huh?
And Gibbs is constantly drunk or high in this film. Like every parent's worst nightmare. A pretty girl that's constantly drunk. Even in school, she's completely out of it.
So Lori has trauma over her ex-boyfriend leaving her and her mom dying suddenly. And Kia is trying to get her to hump the pain away by trying to convince her to hook up with Balake.
You know, Trey's friend, that guy.
So Jason is here, and he quietly gets through the back door and up the stairs and sees Trey dicking down Gibbs.
Keep in mind, this is the second biggest Jason in the whole saga. This is as big as the remake Jason, and that motherfucker was huge. But yeah, he quietly sneaks into the house and becomes a peeping Tom. Did I mention that Trey's a dick? But don't worry about it, karma's a bitch. I should have known better, and we get the second and best kill of the whole film.
When lazy-eyed Jason just shish kebabs Trey 15 times, stabs his machete on the floor, and then folds Trey in half on top of the bed.
Oh, by the way, and while all this is happening, no one hears anything. This is literally happening upstairs and no one hears anything. I mean, there is rain and lightning happening outside very strong, but this is Ohio. This is not Florida. The rain can't be that loud.
Anyway, so Jason sneaks out of the house and Gibbs discovers the body. The group run outside and a cop car happens to be passing by and sees the group running out of the house.
By the way, the cop that they run into is Lachlan, that actor that plays a panty-sniffing cop in White Chicks, a movie that could never be done nowadays. And I just can't get past the fact that he's a panty-sniffing cop from that movie.
You're not gonna believe what I...
So this movie gets a lot of exposure through dialogue, but it's not subtle at all. The cops arrive on scene and the first thing they do is talk about the fact that Trey's in the bed and straight up just name drop Freddy Krueger in front of the kids.
So the town of Springwood is aware of Freddy and they do have a basic knowledge on how he works, and they have urgency when covering up the whole crime scene and not talking about it, but halfway through the film they just give up and just don't show up anymore.
So they take Lori to the police station and they put her in a room, but they're outside of the room just name dropping Freddy like crazy. Lori ends up falling asleep while remembering Freddy's name from the crime scene. And overall, the nightmare scenes are very scary and very authentic. From the missing child posters following Lori through the hallway to the eyeless child just turning around out of nowhere.
And something that I do love about the Nightmare on Elm Street films is the fact that you don't know when you're actually in a dream till you're already in a dream, and they keep that cliche and that style in this film.
So Freddy's not strong enough yet, so he just jump scares Laurie in this nightmare.
And this is the point of the film where I tell you guys that this movie is like a roller coaster, because we get a scene between Blake's father and Blake, you know, Trey's friend, and they're having a discussion in the front porch about Trey and mourning and being safe, etc., etc.
But it's actually a dream that Balake is having. He comes face to face with Freddy, but Freddy's not strong enough yet. He does like a shadow jutsu thing and he fails, so he wakes up Blake and he is sitting right next to his father, whose head cleanly, and I mean cleanly, pops off just at the right moment where Jason comes out of nowhere and slashes through Blake and his dad's head.
But here's my problem with this scene. At the angle that Blake and his father were sitting, when Jason decapitated Blake's father, he would have slashed through Blake as well. I don't know why he waited till Blake woke up to actually kill him. Jason was just standing here like,
let me respectfully wait till he wakes up so I can kill him so he knows at least that he died, you know, respectfully.
But whatever, it is a slasher film. The death is cool. The head popping off is actually very cool. The practical effects are very nice. So I'm just going to let this one skip over for now.
So we transition to Weston Hills Psychiatric Hospital, and we meet our other main character, Will, and his friend Mark. They are both here because they have some form of contact with Freddy, and since the town is covering up, they're basically just locking the teens away in a mental asylum.
And they're constantly given Hypnocell, which is like a pill inside of the universe that suppresses dream. It's not actually a real pill. It's part of the Nightmare on Elm Street universe.
Will dated Laurie when she was 14, but since he was indirectly involved with the murder of Laurie's mom, and it happened while she was sleeping, the town is also trying to cover it up, so they just jumbled them into this group of people who interacted with Freddy. Will sees a news report about what happened in Laurie's home, and he instantly plans an escape with Mark.
So you would think they would come up with this elaborate plan to escape this highly guarded mental institute that's probably being guarded 24/7 by police, because some of Freddy's victims are in here, people that do remember Freddy, and if these people get out, they will probably spread Freddy around like a virus, right? No.
All you need is a little bit of man-ass, some drugs, and voila. Mark steals the guard's key when they're taking him to his room, and they just literally walk out of the back door. And then we skip to the next day where Laurie is going to school.
And she finds out that Blake was stabbed to death. Stabbed to death. And again, it's these little details when it comes to the writing process of these characters that just at the end adds up and just makes them just shallow bodies that scream out lines. Inside of the school, we get to meet Charlie, and he's just an extra body that gets added to the crew. And the movie tends to do that a lot. It brings in new characters every now and again in order for them to get killed off. And no one cares, but they act like we should care because the main characters just freak out every time they see them like getting killed off or something like that.
We also get introduced to Jay and Silent Bob, and their only character trope is that one's throwing a party and the other one's a stoner and is Gibbs' brother or friend, I don't remember. The only thing in this scene that drives the plot forward is the fact that Laurie's explaining her Freddy dream to her friends, and the kids slowly around her start realizing that they're probably having the same dream.
And again, this movie does so many things that I love that are so true to the sagas and their respective like continuities and stuff, but it just does shit that is so meaningless sometimes.
Long story short, here's where Laurie and Will finally reunite, but Mark freaks out and ruins it, making Laurie 1950s faint.
Oh, great heavens!
Again, two escaped mental patients out in the open just...
He's a child murderer that some parents from around here burned alive. Then he came back.
Laurie gets sent to the nurse's office while Kia and Gibbs wait for her. Kia starts reading like a plastic surgery fashion magazine, and she starts asking the school nurse about surgical advice.
Keep in mind, these are high schoolers asking a high school nurse that probably doesn't give a fuck about anything at this point.
We get a very nice nightmare scene where the magazine that Kia's reading starts to slowly turn into more gruesome, gory images. Then Freddy pops out of the magazine and just says one of the most simple yet awesome one-liners slash throwbacks as he's ripping off Kia's nose.
Got your nose!
But sadly, she wakes up, and I wish this was like an actual death scene in the film, because it would have been cool to see what they could do with the whole plastic surgery and Freddy and the nightmare and stuff like that.
We get a scene with Will and Mark, but it's just again them explaining the plot to each other and how the town is covering up this whole Freddy thing, and we get this a lot during the film.
Which again, they've probably done this about 5 times already, but with different lines.
We move on to the party that's actually a full-on cornfield rave with glow sticks, beer, and alcohol and drugs and like crazy shit.
No, mama, I like girls.
Again, these are high schoolers.
And everyone is here, including our 300 pounds tons of fun Jason. Laurie's here and she's fine. Charlie catches out on Kia.
And Gibbs Gibbs is just drunk.
Laurie and Will reunite again,
And it's literally more of exposure and just the characters talking about past scenes. Like the audience could not remember what just happened 5 minutes ago.
Gibb wanders off and she falls asleep at some point because she sees Mangled Trey in the cornfield.
He's still a dick, by the way. He's still a fucking dick.
But he lures Gibbs into essentially Freddy's boiler room, and we get a classic Freddy chasing his victim through the boiler scene. The scene is simple and very well made. The set design is great. Robert's lines and acting are just impeccable. You can tell he was having a lot of fun and very in character while filming this film.
And the way that it's played out in the end just makes it perfect, because we know that Freddy feeds off of fear and he loves to play with his food, aka his victims, but that same behavior sparks the conflict between Jason and Freddy for the first time.
Because while in the nightmare everything seems to be going according to plan, in the real world Gibbs is just laying on the cornfield and our big boy Jason's on the hunt. This piece of shit glow stick dude tries to essay Gibbs while she's passed out, which catches Jason's attention.
And you know, my boy does not agree with that non-consensual premarital sex.
So while Freddy's in his world about to finally claim his first victim, Jason jumps ahead and takes out the piece of shit glow stick dude, and unfortunately Gibbs as well, by impaling them both and flinging glow stick dude up in the air.
Jason has like a tendency in this movie to just send people flying, because he basically sends like 6 or 7 people, including Freddy, just flinging across the map. So since in real life damage crosses over to dream damage and vice versa,
Gibb dies inside of the dream right as Freddy's about to kill her, and this pisses off Freddy. Jason invites himself to the rave and starts introducing himself to everyone the only way he knows.
Hey, what's up, you guys? Thank you for the invite. Oh, thank you, man. This is so cool. I love this rave. Oh, thank you for trying to put me out, man. Let me give you a hand. Here we go. Ah, refreshing. Now, where the bitches at, it's time to party.
my love and hate for this film revolves around the fact that Jason and Freddy scenes are so good and so true to the nature and the character and the cliches that those characters plays, and the kills are just great. And that kind of overshadows when it comes to how shallow the cast is, and I don't blame him. It's not their acting, it's probably just of the time writing that just makes the whole cast just feel like bodies to kill. And I'm not against that when it comes to how this film plays out, because when it comes to killing scenes, the kills are fucking cool.
I mean, look at how the rage rampage starts. Jason is literally on fire for 2 minutes, still killing people. Literally on fire. The crew manages to escape, and they do find Gibbs' body on their way out, but they have to run and leave it there. And then they just go home. They don't go to the police, they don't go to the FBI, they don't go get an adult. They literally just went through a whole rampage and they go home.
And I get the whole town is in this conspiracy on trying to hide Freddy Krueger and stuff like that, but they're aware that there's a supernatural killer out there. So I think they're willing to believe if some big ass hockey mask wearing dude just went on a fucking rampage in a random rave in the middle of the fucking cornfield. But whatever, apparently no adult can be trusted.
We get a scene where Laurie and Will are talking to each other, and long story short, Will was accused of killing Laurie's mom, but in reality he saw her dad doing it and blamed it on him.
Laurie's dad shows up and does the right thing by taking her away from the escaped mental patient inside of the van in the middle of the night.
This sparks a big fight between Laurie and her father, and Laurie finally confronts her father about what's going on. But it's more of, again, just the same nonsense like,
"What's going on?
I can't tell you. I gotta protect you.
You suck, Dad. I hate you."
This scene is like the perfect example of how crazy this film is, because Laurie goes from the van to fighting with her dad upstairs, like sneaking out, going behind the bushes, and getting back in the van again.
Will tells Laurie that they need to go pick up Mark since he's like a Freddy expert because his brother was one of the victims and he can help them understand the situation more.
Yeah, Mark is like screwed.
Because Mark falls asleep while thinking about his brother, the postal dude by the way. And at first, Freddy's still not strong enough to kill Mark and tries to strike a deal with him by trying to send a message through Mark. But Mark is terrified of Freddy, and this gives Freddy enough power to not only send the message, but take out Mark as well.
So yeah, Freddy kills Mark, but not before leaving like a burned message on his back that says Freddy is back.
We skip to a scene in the police station, and it's more of just the cops going, "Shh, we're trying to cover this up, so keep your mouth shut." Even though like 8 to 10 teenagers got brutally murdered in an illegal rave yesterday. Officer Scott, you know, the panty sniffer, he is a deputy, and he's new to the town, so he hasn't been there long enough to know what's going on. And he's very skeptical, so he goes and finds the crew to see if he can find some answers.
And he just finds them in the library by chance.
They're in the library trying to discuss on how to deal with Freddy and Jason at the same time. time. And Officer Scott just comes out of nowhere and just exposure dumps all the information they need to deal with Freddy and Jason, including Jason's backstory.
And at this point, he should have just showed up with the boxes of Freddy and Friday the 13th and just played them, because he's just dumping out dates, exposures, crime scene, names, family members, social security. He's just giving us all the exposure that we need. Like, the crew literally figures out the plot of this film in 1 minute.
Lori's sitting separate to the group and she tries to join the conversation by saying this stupid line.
Freddy died by fire, Jason by water. How can we use that?
And the crew decides to start planning taking out Jason first by offering him a virgin sacrifice, and they all take a good long look at Lori.
By the way, virginity confirmed, and they all decide to use Lori as bait.
But psych, is actually a dream, and Freddy tries to cash in that virginity coupon, but Lori manages to fight him off and get a hold of his ear. And as she's getting woken up by the crew, she pulls out Freddy's ear from the dream, revealing what we fans already know, that you can pull out Freddy by holding on to him when you wake up.
But they don't instantly go for that plan on trying to pull Freddy out of the nightmare, because for some reason they take on the side quest to go and find more Hypnocil for everybody, because runtime, and there's only one place that we know that has an endless supply of Hypnocil.
The supposedly highly guarded mental institution that Will and Mark escape from so easily, Weston Hills Psychiatric Hospital. And again, they break in through the same door they broke out of.
Who's running this place? Like, wouldn't you change the card and the locks the same day 2 mental patients escaped? And I'm gonna be honest with you, this whole scene is just filler, because if they're trying to pull Freddy out of their dreams, why would they try to suppress their dreams? Like, maybe they wanted more time to plan or something like that, but this whole scene just doesn't make sense at all.
The only thing important from these scenes is the fact that Jason's also here and he gets a couple more bodies added to his body count, and the fact that Freddy now can actually possess people, and with that, he comes up with a different plan to defeat Jason.
Because apparently smoking weed does get you into like a weird dreamlike comatose state, and it allows Freddy to possess Jay. And I think at this point, like, Freddy didn't even need Jason. He just needed someone to just mention him once, and he would have already just, you know, snowball into this whole film.
By the way, Officer Panty Sniffer dies in this scene, and apparently Lori's dad is running some trials with Hypnocil in order to cover up and try to defeat Freddy or suppress him. I don't know. They literally don't dive into any details on this. They just show this scene to make Lori's dad look like a criminal. So Stoner Freddy's plan is actually to trank Jason to make him fall asleep, so that way Freddy can fight with him in his own turf.
And again, raise your hands up, because we're going on a roller coaster again, because it's a great plan from Freddy to tranquilize Jason so he can go into a dream state and find him in his own turf. But Jason, like, is a zombie, he's undead. But again, things that needed to be done for this movie to make sense.
And so now that Jason's tucked in and fully asleep, we get round 1 of this epic showdown.
And I gotta be honest with y'all, the best parts of this whole film is not only the kills, but the fight scenes between Freddy and Jason.
Every time that Freddy and Jason interact with each other in this film, it's like perfection to me.
Fun fact, Rey Mysterio is credited to be the stunt double for Freddy in some of these fight scenes. So he's basically the one getting thrown around by Jason.
So obviously, since we're in Freddy's world, Jason gets beaten like a pinball machine. He gets thrown around. He gets beaten like I used to get beat by my father. It's just very bad. But y'all know that our big boy Jason is undefeatable, and this is actually starting to frustrate Freddy a little bit. And now we get one of the most dumbest plot twists in all of horror history, when we find out that Jason in this movie apparently is afraid of water.
But he's not actually afraid of water. The director explained that Jason being so unstoppable, he needed at least some form of weakness to make this fight fair. And since one of his last memories alive was him drowning, he basically uses that as a crutch for Freddy to take over and try to break Jason's psyche. So no, Jason's not afraid of water, but water does affect him emotionally to a certain degree. You get it? I didn't get it either, but just go with it. Hey, at least it's better than the original plan, which had Freddy in like his human form be one of the camp counselors and be the one responsible for Jason's drowning. You know, basically mixing both of the sagas and breaking the continuity in both of the sagas in order to get them together. So I'm okay with this idea.
So moving on, Freddy uses this fact to change up the strategy and trying to break Jason instead of just trying to beat him to death. So while all this is happening in the real world, the crew decides to take tranquilized Jason all the way from Elm Street, Springwood, Ohio to Cunningham Country, New Jersey.
A nearly 4-hour drive. Why? Because Laurie said that Jason needed some home turf advantage. And I'm starting to think that we shouldn't be listening to Laurie and whatever plan she comes up with.
And by the way, Laurie's big plan is once she gets to Crystal Lake, she's going to take a nap beside Jason and hopefully fall asleep, fall into his dream, and pull Freddy out.
Again, we definitely shouldn't be listening to Laurie at all.
But she actually manages to fall inside of Jason's dream. And Freddy's using that day that Jason drowned as part of his plan to defeat Jason inside of the dream realm. So at this point, Freddy has turned Jason into his kid form and just replayed the day that he drowned. Laurie's there and he tries to save him, but Freddy actually pulls kid Jason into the water.
And holy shit, Freddy's plan is actually working because Jason is actually drowning. There's like this brief comic relief in the film where they're trying to give mouth to Jason, but Jason's just puking out water, and obviously he's like a rotten zombie. And one, that doesn't make sense because obviously he's dead, and you shouldn't be giving like people CPR when they're actively drowning and puking out water, but it's still hilarious. I love this scene.
But since Jason did not consent to getting mouth to mouth, he wakes up abruptly and sends the whole band flying across the air. Jason goes flying across the air, but apparently Laurie's still in the nightmare. But since Jason woke up, he's not in the nightmare, and now it becomes Laurie's nightmare. And yeah, Freddy's just pissed about it.
And I gotta say, demon slash like mad Freddy is fucking terrifying.
So Laurie's nightmare turns into that night where Laurie's dad supposedly killed her mother and then framed Will for it. But apparently it wasn't Will or her dad, it was actually Freddy. He's now coming for adults instead of teenagers, and I feel like this is why the town is trying to cover him up. They never straight up tell us why the town is so invested in covering up Freddy and trying to hide him other than protecting the teenagers. But I assume because of this scene, it's because Freddy started coming more for adults and the whole town was in danger at this point. So the Scooby-Doo crew take Laurie back to this cabin, who at this point is still knocked out completely inside the nightmare.
I said talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
And Jason comes out of nowhere and all hell breaks loose.
So my boy is home and he's ready to do his thing.
Jason knocks down a gas can which ignites and it sets the whole cabin on flames. Will gets injured trying to protect Laurie. Some dude gets thrown against the wall. I forgot his name. What was his name? Charlie? Chucky or some shit? Charlie? Anyways, yeah, he gets flung against the wall.
Look at my damn bitch, damn. Look at
in this whole chaos, Laurie's hand falls inside of the fire and manages to actually wake her up as she has Freddy on top of her. So she pulls out Freddy from the dream finally.
So here we go, baby. Freddy's out in the real world. Jason's home. He's pissed. He's pumped. Let's get this shit started.
And I gotta say, this is every horror fan's wet dream back in 2003. Jason and Freddy duking it out, blood, gore, kick-ass new metal. What else can you ask for?
The final fight itself is worth sitting through this whole nonsense of a plot because it plays to both characters' strengths and it doesn't give any of the characters like a definite upper hand in this fight. Jason is resistant and slow, but he has incredible strength and an unlimited gas tank. Freddy is smart, he's cunning, he's strategic, and he basically plays out to Jason's slowness, balances out the fact that he doesn't have powers in the real world.
From the subtle jokes thrown in there for each character, like Freddy taking the time to laugh at Jason when his machete gets stuck, to Jason flinging Freddy 20 feet in the air.
By the way, Charlie's dead. He got penetrated by like a coat hanger earlier, and he's just out. He's just not here. Just letting you know, by the way.
At one point, Freddy and Jason stopped fighting because Jason just flung Freddy across the fucking map. And Freddy manages to catch up with Laurie and Will as they're trying to leave. Kia tries to distract Freddy by seducing him, and we get a twist on Freddy's "How sweet fresh meat" line when he says,
How sweet, dark meat.
that's gotta be racist.
Then Kia starts talking about Freddy and Jason's dick and balls for some reason.
You got these teensy-weensy little things, and Jason has got this big old thing like...
and Jason doesn't like anybody talking about his body in that way, so he dispatches a Mia in the most understandable way possible.
God, Jason loves to fling people in this film. He just throwing bodies like crazy. Quick side note, Laurie again has a genius plan, and instead of running away and watching this fight from afar, she literally has to see it 10 feet away while these two supernatural beings are just beating and cutting the crap out of each other.
So the fight goes ham. Freddy's dropping elbows. Jason is just throwing big swipes with his machete. Freddy gets a slight advantage when Jason gets thrown into a construction site and gets impaled by rebar and swinging metal tanks that Freddy drops on him. But Freddy gets too cocky and falls right into Jason after trying to run him over with the sand dune or sand cart, whatever it's called. So predictably, the fight spills into the dock where Laurie and Will are, and it gets way too messy for YouTube, but the rundown is Freddy stabs Jason in the eye, but Jason gets him back by giving him the most Dragon Ball Z gut punch ever, like Piccolo and Android 17 when they were training gut punches, and Laurie gets this brand new idea of blowing up the dock with gas tanks and gasoline, which sends Freddy and Jason just flying across the lake.
And we assume that the fight's over.
But Freddy comes back one last time and tries to kill Laurie and Will, only to have Jason come back again and give him one last blow with his own severed claw hand. Laurie gets in one final blow by decapitating Freddy with Jason's machete, and then both Freddy and Jason finally float down to the bottom of the lake, dead, supposedly.
But wait.
The next morning, Jason walks out of Crystal Lake holding Freddy's head, and Freddy's head gives us a wink, ultimately telling us that both characters are still alive.
And I'm all for it. It's a technical draw, and that's kind of okay because it keeps both the fan base happy. But overall, the movie needed to be made a certain way for it to work, and if that meant that we got exposure every 5 minutes, but at least we got a nice, decent fight at the end, I'm all for it. I'm happy with it. Is it a great movie? No. But aren't all the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street movies great? No. But at least we got what we wanted. We got Freddy and Jason fighting. It was bloody, it was gory, and at the end, it was a draw. You know, it was a nice like gray line where everybody was happy. But that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for sticking through this video. Make sure you follow me, make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment down below if you have any ideas for other video ideas and other movies you guys want me to review. Like I always say before I head out, if you have a goal or something in mind that you want to achieve, I hope that it comes true because everybody deserves a little bit of happiness in this fucked up world. Use your turn signals, guys. I almost got into a car crash earlier because someone doesn't fucking know how to use their turn signals. I'm gonna head out. Love y'all. Bye.